Hey guys, welcome to the show. In this episode, we're going to review the bona fide cult classic Basket Case from 1982. Is it really a good movie? Really?
A young man with a mysterious basket arrives in New York City to exact revenge upon the physicians who cruelly separated him from his conjoined twin in Basket Case.
For anyone who hasn't seen the movie, let's just say real quick that it's about a young man named Dwayne who comes to New York City with this huge basket, picnic basket, and we don't know why yet, but he's talking to the basket and we don't see what's in it. He starts going to doctors, and we find out pretty quickly at that point that the basket's filled with his parasitic twin brother who was removed from him some years ago when he was a child. And now they're taking revenge on the doctors who performed that surgery, ra- rather callously performed that surgery.
And it's
And
the talk it's the parasitic brother who's really kind of in charge of Dwayne. And parasitic brother never speaks, right? In the At least in the first
yeah,
movie.
I mean,
He
I
just
don't think he can,
he kind of
but
just screeches.
they have a telepathic
They
or
do.
psychic connection, right? The brothers.
Yes. So Dwayne can hear his parasitic brother talking in his head,
Mhm.
just like probably the way he could hear him when they were still attached.
So basically, it's a revenge movie,
Mm-hmm.
and
It's also a coming of age movie because Dwayne is young. I don't really know how old he is. Is he, 18, 19, 20? Not sure. Everyone calls him kid, and he does look very young. Um, and, it's his first time in the big city. And yes, he is there to get revenge on these three doctors that did the
yeah.
surgery. But like he starts to fall in love with a nurse, goes on a couple of dates that of course the parasitic brother through his psychic connection ruins. And then the parasitic brother gets jealous of his brother who's falling in love with this woman. And and then there's the big climax is basically a fight between the two brothers.
And I mean, let's be clear that this is this is a horror comedy, and
Yes, it is a
they
horror
know
comedy.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that looking it up, like the whole conception behind the movie was coming up with the film title first, Basket Case, and then
Really.
yeah, and then coming up with a pun, and then coming up with this idea, and
Mm.
clearly it's played for laughs in a lot of parts. And yeah, there's some of it that I think is genuinely humorous. Like, just imagine, living in this tenement and the neighbors are all complaining about the horrible noises that somebody's making, and well, it's this murderous parasitic monster killing people and whatnot, so there's that
Yep.
element. But obviously, I think just the cheesiness of it all, that's the real reason why this was an instant cult classic. And I mean, the fact that this movie was restored by the Museum of Modern Art, I think just is kind of the
That's true.
stamp of a genuine cult classic, right?
Yep.
um One thing that we didn't talk about that we usually do is why this movie? Why did we pick this movie? How did we come to this movie?
How did you
So
come to this movie, Will?
so this was one of those movies that I always kind of remembered seeing at the video store way back in the VHS days and
So
seeing the
just like the
box art.
cover, just the box art?
Yeah, and I think the box art was, the basket, and maybe it was a
Oh,
hand.
partially open and you kind of see a claw or
Yeah,
something?
there may have been eyes, I don't remember.
Okay.
But, being a kid at that time, I don't think we were renting, horror movies like that
Right.
without, some other kind of appeal to them for us.
Hmm.
But then, just one of those movies that out there, but never saw. And then I was like,
I
oh,
had
this
never heard of this movie.
really,
Yeah, I had never heard of it.
that's
And
strange because for the people who don't know that, you really are a horror movie fan,
yes,
aficionado.
I watch a lot of horror movies, a lot, mostly bad, some great, um, and some just good. But yeah, I'd never heard of this movie, and I am glad because I didn't even know there's trilogy. First off, that's amazing. Which and the last one I think is like in the early '90s. So this is like a 10-year labor of love to make three movies over a decade. I think they were all directed. I don't know if they were all directed by the same guy, but
So, I mean, yeah, it's definitely has a following and
I
has
did.
its
Yeah,
fans.
yeah.
So if any of those people are watching this and think that, we're just bagging on the movie, it John and I both love good bad movies and cheesy horror movies and whatnot.
Hmm.
So this one just wasn't our cup of tea. But
I am glad we saw it though. Um, like when the stop motion, the first stop motion sequence where the parasitic brother is just trashing the hotel room. Didn't expect it. Loved it. But you're absolutely right. It is a horror comedy, and I think you could watch the movie. Like if someone's never seen this movie, heard of this movie, and they're watching this, and they're like, "Okay, I'll give this thing 20 minutes," let's say, and you watch it on Tubi for free. Um, that's a free plug right there, Tubi. You might not catch that there it is a comedy. And I remember like it I didn't realize there was anything comedic about the movie until he gets to the hotel and starts interacting with, the guy that runs it and the different tenants that, that basically live there. Um that yeah, it is a comedy and it's like a cheeseball weird horror comedy.
yeah, I guess for me it's not well, I think we both really like Sam Raimi, like early Sam Raimi horror movies, which have
Yeah.
oddball comedy and gore in them, right?
Yep.
This movie, I guess, just missed the mark in terms of I didn't find it particularly witty. Uh, it didn't make
No.
me laugh. And then, as far as the kills go, I didn't think that they were particularly memorable, other than the fact that there's this little creature killing people.
Yeah.
um,
The opening sequence, there's this doctor and he's leaving his house and it's a windy dark night and something is watching him and it should be suspenseful but it is not. And it that sequence does fail, but there are there's there are better sequences later in the movie where the parasitic brother is stalking mostly women, but one other doctor, and they are a little bit more suspenseful. Um, so it's just there are sequences that are better, and then there are sequences that don't work. I would say
yeah, and I think that some people might say, well, this movie is a product of its time. And so
that's
you have
fair.
to enjoy it in that light. And I agree in partly because I just looked it up. Friday the 13th, that came out in 1980, so 2 years before this. And I feel like that movie is much more suspenseful and
That's a
memorable
stronger. Yep.
in terms of just straight horror
Hmm.
and the filmmaking. it's kind of interesting because on the next episode we're going to talk about Deep Star 6, which is directed by Sean S. Cunningham, and he directed the original Friday the 13th. So
That's right.
that movie just feels a lot more mainstream and competently made in terms of,
Yeah, but
you know,
Cunningham had a lot more money than Henenlotter, right?
well, okay, yeah, but even then, Friday the 13th was a
Yes,
cheap
that's true. That was a
movie.
very, yeah, that's true. Yeah,
But okay,
yeah,
so
that's
this
true.
was, so then this movie Basket Case would have been like, the no budget movie, right?
Right.
So, okay. But like the stop motion in this movie, of course, back then in 82, that's what they had, right? For animation for something like that. I mean, it was either stop motion or it was going to be 2D animation,
Yep.
which would have not
That's all you
really worked
got.
at all.
Yep.
So, I mean, back in 82, maybe, although I still feel like if we'd seen this in 82 and we were old enough, it would have been funny just because what you're seeing is so outlandish,
Yeah.
right? Um, but let's talk more about maybe like the nuts and bolts. Uh, so I think part of this movie, like I said, it's not the worst movie I've ever seen, and in some ways, it's a lot more competent than even recent bad movies that I've seen. Um, but like you know, the acting, the writing, it's all just so broad. Like
Yes.
there's really no attempt to ground it or make the serious moments serious or dramatic. Um, and it looks like a porno movie. Did you get
It
that
looks like a porno movie.
from
Well,
that
I mean,
era?
it does show off like gritty, grimy, late 70s, early 80s
Mm,
New York with the neon and the strip clubs all over the place, and prostitutes walking the streets at night. And yeah, everyone's like, except Dwayne, everyone's sweaty and wearing too much makeup. So I feel like these were choices that the director made intentionally. To shoot in these. I mean, it's probably also because that's all the budget he had, but to shoot in these, um, grimy places. Even the doctor's offices are kind of gross. But I mean,
mm.
that's the movie, and that was intentional. I do like there's one moment when when Dwayne and his basket with his brother inside go to a doctor's office, and there are two nurses and they're twins. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's clever. He should have done that more. There should have been more twins or more people that look the same. Um, but that's what he found two. He found two twins, and he was like, "Oh, that's great. I'll just throw them in the movie."
Someone probably would know the answer to this, but the lead actress in the movie, um, she was clearly wearing a wig. Did that bother you?
Dr. Needleman's an old friend of the family.
No,
Is there any chance
Okay,
I could
because
see
well,
no.
Dr.
when I
Needleman
saw her,
around?
I'm like,
Can't tell you no.
why is she
Friend
wearing
of the
that
family or
obvious
not.
wig? Like that's
But as you
weird.
can see,
So
we
then I
have
looked it
hundreds
up,
of
and
patients
Oh,
apparently
okay.
coming to
she was
see him.
bald or had a shaved head at that time. And then
Huh.
I'm like, well, that's maybe I don't know if she had alopecia or she, something like that.
Or she was punk. Yeah, who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, but it was I kind of feel like, well, is it because that this was the only actress that the guy could get to be in the movie, but she was bald, and so they threw that bad wig on her, something like that. Um,
I don't know.
Uh, I think the most outrageous moment or funniest moment was when,
Uh,
let's say, when Dwayne gets picked up by his genitals. Do you remember that?
Oh,
He
by
gets
his brother.
Yeah, he gets lifted off the ground.
That's right.
But
The parasitic
which is
brother, he was pretty strong. He could
yeah.
climb sides of buildings, and he doesn't have legs. He just has little stumpy arms and a kind of a face and a torso that's kind of connected to the head. He's just arms and torso and head.
Unless I missed it. I mean, so when they do a flashback and you see them remove the brother,
Hmm.
uh, and then I did kind of laugh when they just throw him in a Glad bag and throw him on the street, right?
He's still
But
alive.
yeah, it's
It's
like
ecstatic.
from that standpoint, I can understand why he'd have this murderous rage, right?
Hmm? Yeah.
But I don't know unless I missed it in the flashbacks. The reason why they removed him, other than just well, he exists, but were they like killing cats or animals around the neighborhood? Was
No.
Dwayne showing psychotic tendencies and that's why they performed this surgery, or it was just this cosmetic reason to get rid of the brother?
Well, I think it was cosmetic, and I think there's one doctor that's gonna go, or maybe she's. It's like he.
The main doctor was a vet, right?
Yeah, she
And
was a veterinarian, but I think it was just the parasitic brother was, he was always screaming, and I think he was violent to people if you got kind of too close or something.
hmm,
I think that was, but I think it was mostly just that it was, yeah, people were disgusted and horrified by him, and so they, you know, just knocked Dwayne out and his brother, and they just throw him out in the garbage, and Dwayne finds him.
I'm kind of surprised that no one has remade this movie yet or done something just like it. I've
I mean, I think
seen
there's a bunch of movies just like it.
really.
I mean,
I
there's
I rem-
the Dark Half, right?
I never saw that.
So as based on a Stephen King thing where like a man had a brother that like his body absorbed, and then his brother like is kind of Jekyll and Hyde,
Oh,
where the
okay.
brother
All right.
takes over. But I think there was just recently one where, yeah, oh god, who directed it? Was it like James Wan or the director of Insidious? There's it's a can't remember the name of them. Just a couple of
Oh,
years
yeah,
ago, where
yeah,
a
yeah.
woman
I
had
know.
a
Yeah.
face in the back of her head.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
Who directed that? Was it like James
It
Wan or
was
something?
yeah. It
It
was
was. I can't remember what it was called.
um yeah, I remember that movie
That
was
was a bad
terrible.
movie. Yeah. Oh man, I saw that one in the theater. I can't remember what it was called.
um I'm looking it up right now.
It's it's
Uh,
gothic intentionally. Um,
Malignant.
Malignant. And that parasitic twin also had like supernatural powers.
Yeah, but I don't want to get sidetracked, but I just remember because
Yeah.
James Wan, I think he's like one of those filmmakers who's gotten better with time. And so I felt like, going to see one of his movies now would, you know, you
Yeah,
have
that was that.
reasonable expectations.
Yeah.
But that movie was a step back for him. I felt
Yes, it
like,
was. It happens. Nobody's
um,
perfect.
just randomly, it came up on social media and I sent it to you, but I'll tell the audience.
Oh, I saw
There
that.
was a real sideshow people, conjoined twins,
Hmm.
Lazarus and Johann Baptista Colorado from the 17th century.
Okay.
They are conjoined twins who toured freak shows. I guess they were very
Oh.
famous at that time. And it was just like this movie where the one twin was sticking out of his torso.
Yeah, and he had the twin had arms and a head, and kind of a little bit of a tiny little torso.
It
Yeah.
says the twin couldn't speak, but was alive, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then it almost sounds like someone should make a movie about this guy. It sounds like the uh the regular brother committed murder or killed somebody, and the reason why he avoided the death sentence was because he said, "Well, if you kill me, you're going to kill my brother."
Oh my God.
So he avoided being executed that
So it's
way.
just life in prison or something.
Uh
Of course, prison in the 1600s is probably not great.
well, it says later accounts claim that he got married and had children. So I don't think he spent the rest of his life in prison.
Okay.
Um what else can we say about this movie? Oh, there was also a streaking scene where he's running.
Oh yeah, it's a nightmare. Like he or is it? Is it a nightmare sequence where he's running naked down the sidewalks of New York?
I'm not sure, but they do full frontal, which
Yeah.
kind of a bold choice since especially at this time it's gonna, you know, it's
Oh, I
gonna
went
get like an X rating or
right. I
something.
wonder if what it. Do you know what it was rated when it was first released? I don't know. I
I'm
didn't
gonna
see that
guess
on
that it was
Wikipedia.
unrated.
Oh, probably.
Uh,
Or if it was rated X when there was a difference. Like I was that was a time when you could be rated X, but you wouldn't be a porn movie. Porn were triple X, and just an X movie could just be whatever
so the
violence and
internet says the
yeah.
initial US release was unrated, but
Okay.
it was still trimmed by the distributor, and a lot of the violence was later reinserted when the film started playing the midnight circuit.
I'm surprised they cut out violence and not just cut out nudity, but maybe you had to. Hmm.
So this movie spawned a trilogy, I guess.
And we have not seen the next two. Neither of us have. Maybe we
Yes,
will.
I'd be curious to hear in the comments though if anyone watches this if they've seen those movies and how they compare.
I mean, the filmmaking probably gets better. And I think it's the same actor. I think it's the same actor who plays Dwayne. That's this like it's his story. So I think we probably should watch all three. It was so painful though. This movie was, we talk about like, is it a bad movie or is it a good
Mm.
bad movie? This is a bad movie. I think we can both say,
So it's
unfortunately.
yeah, so I would say it's a bad movie and you're going one above that and saying it's a bad bad movie
Well,
or you're
there's bad good movies, and then there's bad movies.
well, okay, so it's a bad movie
It's a bad movie. It's
in
a
our opinion.
Yeah.
Uh
But we're trying to do bad movies, right? We're trying to
mm.
and is it some there are some bad movies that I love. Like Stargate. I love Stargate. It's a bad movie, but it's fine.
I saw that recently. It's been a
Yeah.
while, but I
And
saw well, I thought the first act still holds up, and then for me, it falls apart as soon as they get to the planet, desert planet.
how dare you?
That's a different discussion.
I think
So
that's fair
here's the
though.
if more than 100 people watch this episode, then I say we'll do Basket Case 2.
I mean, okay.
I don't know what I don't know
Okay.
what the likelihood of that is. So,
Oh, good. Okay.
yeah.
That's fine. That's good. All right.
All right, that was basket case.
Basket
Watch
case.
if you dare.